Have you ever wondered why we believe in someone we've never seen? A man in red, a sleigh in the sky, a gift left in the dark. What if the answer was older than Christmas itself? Long before malls and wrapping paper, before chimneys and flying deer, there were whispers, cold nights, names spoken in secret. This story began in firelight, in fear, and in kindness. They say he walked in silence, left coins in wooden shoes. He didn't seek thanks, only warmth, only hope, and from one man, a legend grew. What if Santa isn't just pretend? What if he's a reflection of something real? A part of us that gives even when the world stops believing. Tonight, we follow his footprints through time. If this journey calls to you, come walk with me again, in the hush, in the dark, where legends still breathe. Subscribe. But before the reindeer, before the sleigh, there were older stories carried by fire and wind. Before reindeer, before red robes, there was only winter, a silence thick as snow. Men lit fires, not for joy, but to survive, and whispered to keep the dark from listening. The longest night felt like a test. The sun sank and did not return. So they danced, they burned, they sang the sky awake, hoping it was listening. In the north, he rode the wind. One eye, a cloak of storm, and a horse with more legs than reason. Woden, they called him. He flew through winter skies, judging from above. Children placed hay in worn leather boots. If Woden was kind, he left gifts. If not, he moved on, and always the wind howled behind him. Two spirits battled each solstice, oak and holly, summer and snow. In winter, the Holly King ruled, with crown of thorns and cloak of frost. The 12 nights of Yule were filled with watching, dreams of ghosts, omens in smoke. Families left offerings on windowsills, hoping the spirits passed by in peace. Not all winter spirits were kind. Krampus came with chains. He dragged shadows through the snow and snarled at children who lied. In other lands, a stranger smiled. Dressed in furs, he laughed in taverns, gave oranges to the poor, and promised the sun would return. They brought pine indoors, not to decorate, but to honor the green that never died. They whispered blessings into its branches and tied wishes with string and bone. In the deepest snow, they built great fires, not for heat, but to remind the gods that humans still burned. Every spark was a word, every ember a plea. They watched the horizon for a glow, a line of gold on the edge of blue, and when it came, they wept, because the sun had not left them, not this time. In one village, a child wandered barefoot. The cold did not bite him. The wolves did not see. An old man in red wrapped him in a cloak, then vanished like breath. Some said you could hear him before you saw him, a gentle ringing like distant stars laughing. He walked with frost, but never left footprints. If the hush of these stories has stayed with you this far, take a moment, like the video, and help these old whispers reach new ears. He had many names, and none of them were quite right. Odin, Father Winter, the one who brings, the one who judges. The wind still speaks them if you listen hard enough. Later, they said he was a saint, Nicholas, who gave to the poor and walked with a staff instead of a sword. But the snow still followed him, and the wolves still watched. In time, the stories blurred. A god became a man became a myth became a memory lit by candlelight. But something real still walked between them. He never arrived in the noise, only when the snow softened every step, when candles burned low, when even fear had gone to sleep. Then he passed by. He came from many places, from icy northlands and sun-drenched deserts, from stories told in languages now lost. But all of them believed in someone who comes in winter to give. Where he walked, frost shimmered. Not cold, but memory. Children say they've seen the trail. Thin, silver, gone by morning. He is not just from the past. He is the hush before a snowflake lands, the kindness done in secret, the warmth left without a name. He is the echo of our oldest firelight. But sometimes the gods become men, and one of them, long ago, gave without asking. But myths don't vanish. Sometimes they put on a face, walk among us, and give without asking. He was born where the sea sings softly, in Patara, where boats carried silk and prayers. They say his cry was quiet, as if he knew the world already ached. As a boy, he saw hunger not as misfortune, but as invitation. He gave bread without name, coins without pride. No one thanked him, but they smiled differently the next day. There was a man with 3 daughters and no dowries. At night, Nicholas dropped 3 small bags through their window. One fell in a shoe, one into drying stockings, one straight into hope. He asked no one to speak his name. He gave, then vanished, like the wind that opens a window but takes nothing, and still, the coins kept appearing. He boarded a ship, not to escape, but to learn how the sea speaks. A storm rose, waves howled, the mast split. He prayed, and the sea went quiet. They chose him not because he wanted it, but because he didn't. He wore red, not for power, but for service. He walked with the poor and spoke softly, as if truth didn't need to shout. They say he healed a boy with a breath and a whisper. They say a merchant's ship found port only because he dreamed it. But he never said what he did, only smiled and changed the subject. In one town, a famine came. Bread vanished. Nicholas gave gold to every household. Quietly. The wind carried small coins to doorsteps, like seeds from a hidden hand. A sailor was accused. The crowd shouted. The blade was raised. Nicholas stepped forward. He said nothing, just laid his hand on the sword. And somehow, that was enough. He brought peace into rooms where war had lingered. He gave hope to widows without touching coin. Sometimes, a gift is just the right word spoken at the right silence. They waited for him, not for gifts, but for stories. He told them of ships and stars, of the sea that sings and the bread that multiplies, and they believed. One day, he was gone. No crowd, no farewell, no statue, only stories, only coins, only warmth in places he never entered. He became a name spoken in winter, a tale told at candlelight. But behind every word was a man. Not perfect, but kind when it mattered most. Some say he still walks, not in boots, but in hands that give quietly. Not with a beard, but with hearts that look for need before applause. He is the saint of no spotlight, of silent coins, of cloaks given in the dark. Not just Nicholas, but something older that still survives each time we give without being seen. But stories change when whispered long enough. A saint becomes a tale becomes a face, and the world begins to dress its giving in new colors. He was not forgotten, just rewritten. A robe became a story became a season, and still his footsteps echoed beneath the snow. The east told of a saint, the north whispered of a gift giver, the west carved joy into his face. Painters painted, poets imagined, children believed what they saw in each other's eyes. His beard was not always white. It grew with every century he was remembered. and the snow that fell around his name began to sparkle instead of sting. He lost the staff. He kept the red, not for power, but for memory, because kindness always wears what it once wore when no one noticed. They brought him across the sea, Santa Claus in bishop's red, riding wind and water. He came to New Amsterdam with oranges and stories told in hush. They said he rode the roofs, boots never thudding. He slid through smoke and left behind not gold, but toys carved by hands that loved the child they'd never meet. It wasn't always reindeer, sometimes horses, sometimes wind, but someone dreamed of hooves in the sky, and the sleigh appeared like it had always been there. A poem changed him, not scripture, but rhyme, not gospel, but dream. 'Twas the night before, and suddenly he laughed, he twinkled, he rode the world. In the coldest season, they made markets glow. Fires burned, spices rose, and Nicholas walked between the booths, his name tucked in every bell. The children began to write, not prayers, but wishes. They asked for dolls, for snow, for just one more day without worry. And someone, somehow, always answered. He was in Paris. He was in Prague. He rang bells in Boston, lit trees in Tokyo. One face, 1,000 masks. One spirit, shared in silence. First, the staff was lost, then the mitre, then the bells grew louder, the belly rounder, the laugh warmer, and yet, behind all that velvet was still a quiet man who once gave quietly. Then came the ink and the bottle, bright red, bold smile, and boots that shined. A jolly man stepped out of an ad, and somehow walked into hearts. They changed his look, but not his meaning. Still he came. On rooftops, in dreams, in wrapping paper tied with care. Still he came with quiet magic. And beneath it all, the bishop, the giver, the whisper in the night. Not just Santa, but Nicholas, still walking, still watching, still waiting for a reason to give again. But not all gifts were gold or bread. Some were green and reached for light, even in winter, even in silence. When all leaves fled, it stayed, a promise wrapped in needles. The ancients touched it as if it whispered, "Winter is not the end." So they brought it inside and lit it like a prayer, Before Bethlehem, before shepherds and stars, people worshipped evergreens, not as gods, but as proof that the world remembered warmth. Branches hung with bones, fruits, and hope. The red fruit was knowledge. It was sin. It was sweetness. So they hung apples on branches, then candles to balance it. The tree shimmered. A garden replanted in winter. They lit trees not to dazzle, but to promise. The light would return. Each flame was a sun held in a leaf. Each child who watched it believed a bit more in morning. They cut the tree, not in cruelty, but in invitation, to bring the wild into warmth, to let the forest watch the fire, and every pine cone held a story it would never tell. It wasn't decoration. It was memory. Each ornament a tiny echo of hands now gone. They placed them gently. They whispered names. The tree listened and held them all. The glass was shaped not in a factory, but in flame. Old glass blowers breathed into beauty. They made stars, moons, teardrops, and in every one a flicker stayed. Each year it returned. Each year it watched. Laughter, loss, first kisses, empty chairs. But the tree said nothing. It only glowed, and glowed, and glowed. Some placed an angel, some a star. Both pointed to the same hope. It wasn't about height, but light. The tree crowned with something that once guided the lost. Sometimes the lights went out. Sometimes they flickered. But still they were lit. For the ones who wouldn't make it home. For the hopes we didn't know how to speak aloud. A violin, a tiny sled, a teacup. Each one said what words couldn't. Each one remembered a story that no one told aloud. The tree became a language only hearts could read. It stood not in corners, but in the middle. It asked for no attention, but gave it. It became the pause, the hush, the breath between gifts and grief. Some lit them in silence. Some danced around them. In cities, huts, castles, and tents, the tree appeared like it had always been there. It's not just about gifts. It's the waiting, the hush, the glances, the breath held before morning. And the tree. It watches it all and never sleeps. The tree stands, not because winter wins, but because hope does. Because even in the coldest night, something green remains. And maybe, so do we. But what is a tree without something beneath it? What is a season without the act of giving? Even the quietest hearts wanted to offer something back. Long before ribbons and wrappings, there was a gift. Water offered in silence, bread split in two. Not out of wealth, but out of wonder. Because we saw someone else and whispered, "You matter." Three men rode from deserts and dreams. They didn't bring answers. They brought symbols: gold for kingship, frankincense for prayer, myrrh for goodbye. They gave, not for thanks, but for meaning. A child was cold. A stranger passed. No words, just a basket left by the door. Inside, a woolen scarf, a coin, a carved wooden heart. No name, only care. Somewhere, a child sleeps with shoes by the door, and when morning comes, a coin, a sweet, a small note that says, "You are seen." And they believe, even if they don't know who. Not every gift was explained. Sometimes it came without tag, without sender. And yet, the moment you held it, you felt known. She didn't bring toys. She brought time. He didn't bring boxes. He brought silence and listening. And the child, wrapped in their warmth, knew this was Christmas. She mailed a scarf to a soldier she'd never meet. He paid for groceries he'd never see unbagged. They gave to names on lists, because the world was wider than their arms. Not all could give, but some gave in smiles, in stories, in sweeping snow from another's path. They gave with hands that held nothing except love. She gave the last candle. He gave the only coat. And no one saw. No photograph. No story. Only warmth, where cold once was. She kept the doll for 30 years, then gave it to a girl who had none. And that girl, years later, did the same. And the doll, worn and wise, kept smiling. He worked nights. She stitched socks. They didn't say who left the basket, or filled the pantry, or paid the bill. But they smiled at each other when no one looked. No ribbon, no tag, just a hand on a shoulder, a held breath, a long look that said, "I'm here." And sometimes that was more than anything wrapped. They planted trees they would never see grow. They wrote books they'd never read. They built fires for strangers not yet born. That, too, was a gift. He left the card. He didn't expect a reply, but it came. Simple, soft. I remember you, and I'm still here. Some gifts aren't things, they're chances. Not because we must, not always because they ask, but because something in us wants to light someone else's winter, because joy wants to be shared, and love. It was always meant to move. Let this warmth continue. Subscribe to walk with me again through snowfall, through stars, through stories forgotten by time. And still, no two winters looked the same. In every land, he wore a different face, spoke a different name, but the kindness was always familiar. In the Philippines, Christmas begins not in snow, but in stars. Not the ones above, but the ones they build. Paper lanterns, called parole, glow in every window. They shimmer like suns, calling warmth into the streets. Families gather to light them, not for show, but for hope. A sign that light returns even after the longest night. Children dance beneath the glow, and elders whisper, "Remember who you are and who you love." No snow, no chimney, just sandals, sand, and laughter. In Australia, Santa wears board shorts. He rides waves instead of reindeer. Families gather by the beach. They roast, they swim, they laugh. The tree is often plastic, but the joy is real. And when the sun sets, the sky catches fire. And children still look up and wonder if sleigh bells can ring through heat. On the eve of St. Nicholas, children in the Netherlands place their shoes by the window. Not socks, not stockings, shoes. Inside, they tuck notes, a drawing, perhaps a carrot for the horse. And in the morning, a surprise, a chocolate letter, a toy, a wordless thank you from someone just out of sight. Tradition held in the space between trust and wonder. In Finland, they don't rush. Christmas comes slowly, like snowfall on a silent forest. They visit saunas, not malls. They light candles, not neon. Juhlapukki, the Finnish gift bringer, arrives with quiet joy. More reindeer than red suit. The snow hushes everything, and families sit close, eating rice porridge and listening to the warmth inside one another. In Nigeria, Christmas wears color. It sings, it drums, it dances barefoot under mango trees. There is no silence here, only joy so loud it shakes the sky. People dress in bright fabric, bring food to neighbors, and sing old songs with new voices. Sometimes there's a goat, sometimes a parade, always a reason to gather. In Colombia, Christmas begins with fire. Not danger, but devotion. They light candles on sidewalks, on windowsills, on every step and stone. La Noche de las Velitas, the night of the little candles, a sea of tiny flames carried by faith and family. People walk together, lanterns in hand, faces glowing. The darkness retreats without a single word. In Japan, Christmas isn't ancient. It's borrowed, adapted, softened. It is not a religious day, but a quiet one, a celebration of closeness, of lights, of love. Couples walk beneath sparkling trees, cafes glow with soft jazz, and families share a bucket of chicken, because tradition sometimes grows from the unexpected. In Ethiopia, Christmas arrives in January, by the old calendar under a sun-drenched sky. They call it Ghana. People dress in white, walk barefoot to church, candles flickering in rhythm with their feet. They sing, they chant, they pray in stone-carved chapels older than memory. And afterward, they feast, not with excess, but with reverence. In Ukraine, Christmas brings frost and firelight. Homes sparkle with embroidery, icons, and the smell of honey bread. They sing kolyadki, carols older than kings, that echo from house to house. And on the table, 12 dishes, none with meat, each one a symbol, each one a prayer. In every bowl, history. In Germany, Christmas smells like cinnamon and snow. The Weihnachtsmärkte glow, tiny wooden stalls lined with candles, gingerbread, and dreams. Children sip warm juice with red cheeks. Singers drift through the crowd like snowflakes with voices. Ornaments are hand-carved. Hearts are wide open. And every little booth feels like it was built for just one moment. When a stranger smiles like an old friend. In Greece, Christmas once belonged to boats. Before trees came, they decorated vessels, small wooden ships set in windows lit with stars. They sang of St. Nicholas, the protector of sailors. They gave thanks to the sea. Now, some still place tiny ships by the fire. Because even when trees bloom bright, we remember where the light first sailed in. In Mexico, Christmas is a journey. Families walk in Las Posadas, reenacting Mary and Joseph, knocking on doors that do not open until one does. Inside, light, song, food, and the quiet joy of being let in. Children break piñatas, but the deeper gift is always the welcome, the soft yes after long no's. In Brazil, Christmas glows in summer. Palm trees sway with tinsel, and choirs sing beneath the stars. Fireworks light the sky like birthday candles, for a birth remembered in song and samba. Families wear white and eat late. They dance, they bless, they share. And the night ends not in cold silence, but in rhythm. In Bethlehem, the streets are still. The air holds memory. Pilgrims gather from faraway places, not to shop, not to shine, but to stand where a story began. Midnight Mass fills the ancient church. Candles flicker on old stone. And outside, a hush, the kind you don't dare break. Christmas is not just in places, it's in people, in the light we offer, the warmth we remember, the stories we carry into each other's winter. You don't need a tree, a song, a feast. You only need to open your hands and let kindness come in. But then came pictures, and print, and color, and soon. The quiet giver was wrapped in red and white. Before the suit was red, it was simple. Fur-lined coats, boots for snow, a bishop's hat, or maybe none at all. Santa was a traveler, sometimes thin, sometimes jolly, but always moving, from story to story, country to country. Before branding, before billboards, he was just kindness on foot. Then came a drawing. Soft lines, a twinkle, a belly. Red replaced brown. The robe became uniform. The saint became a brand. It was art, then ad, then icon. And still, somehow, magic clung to the corners. Children didn't mind. They saw him still. Not the ink, but the feeling. Not every sleigh was magic. Some were wagons, some wooden sleds. But stories soared, and soon the sleigh rose too. Pulled by reindeer, flying through frost, ribbons in the wind. A chimney became a door, a roof, a runway, and above the world laughter echoed like bells. They weren't always 8, and Rudolph came late. At first, just the sleigh and some magic deer. But then, a poem, a rhythm, a list. Dasher, Dancer, Prancer, Vixen, Comet, Cupid, Donner, Blitzen. They weren't real, but somehow everyone remembered them like cousins. They ran through snow and through song and through childhood. Then came Rudolph, shy, laughed at, hidden. But the storm came, and the fog, and the fear. And suddenly, his glow was not strange, it was sacred. He led the way, not just through snow, but through judgment, through rejection. And children saw, maybe different was just a new kind of brave. Somewhere, a child asked, "Can I write to him?" And someone said, "Yes." And suddenly, millions of pens moved at once. Dear Santa, written in crayon or tears or hope. Mailboxes filled with dreams. Postal workers became keepers of wonder. And Santa, somehow, always answered. He came to malls, to velvet chairs, to camera flashes and checkout lines. He waited with patience as hundreds of children took turns on his lap. Some cried, some whispered, some just stared. And he listened, even when the beard was loose, even when his boots squeaked. Because belief doesn't need proof, just eye contact and a smile. In stories, there were a few: helpers, tinkerers, toy makers. But then came cartoons, books, movies, suddenly thousands, each with names, hats, quirks. They didn't just build, they became the joy makers. Santa was the symbol, but the elves were the party, and children loved that the magic was a team effort. Then came a bottle, cold, sweet, red, and Santa. He smiled wider, grew rounder, became legend on shelves. Some say they shaped him. Others say he was already there, waiting in the snowdrifts of imagination. Either way, the ad didn't break him. It broadcasted what we already hoped, that joy could be real in every home. He moved onto screens, not just in malls or books, but in film. He spoke, he laughed, he disappeared up chimneys in glowing green light. He found lost toys and lost hope, and lost children. Every version a little different, but all holding the same breath, that joy arrives in strange disguises. Then came typing. Letters became emails. Emails became hashtags. Santa got a profile. Children tracked him, flight by flight, pixel by pixel. And somehow, even there, he didn't vanish, because no code can contain wonder, and no screen can stop belief. He still made it through Wi-Fi and waiting hearts. Sometimes Santa was a neighbor, an uncle, a teacher. He wore the suit not for magic, but for service. He visited hospitals, shelters, battlefields. He brought not toys, but presents, not sleigh bells, but hands, and in his eyes, the same kindness you always imagined. Somewhere in NORAD, a light blinks. A sleigh appears on satellite. Children cheer as red dots move. From Iceland to Indiana. It's pretend, but it's not, because belief isn't always about truth. Sometimes it's about being part of the same story at the same time, and that's real. He can't be everywhere, but he is, in every stocking, every pause, every deep breath before a gift is opened. He is the silence after the wrapping, the candle on the windowsill, the old ornament no one wants to throw away. He is the reason some parents cry quietly while the kids sleep. The suit may fade, the ads may change, but something stays. Not the beard, not the reindeer, not the boots, but the giving, the glow, the grace. Santa is not just a man. He's the shape of our better selves in December, and maybe, if we're lucky, in July too. But even behind the suit and sleigh, something deeper remained. Not the man, but the meaning. Not the myth, but the magic of believing. And maybe he was never meant to be found, only felt, only followed in quiet ways year after year, light after light. It wasn't history, it wasn't fact, it was a whisper, a bedtime voice, a page in a book, a neighbor's wink. You heard the name, and something inside you sat up, listening. Not for proof, not for logic, but for wonder. And even now, when you say it, your voice changes, like you're speaking to the stars. It's not a thought. It's not a rule. It's not something you measure. It's soft. It floats. It glows quietly just behind the ribs. Belief doesn't shout. It sits, like candlelight in your chest, like bells you don't remember hearing, but still trust. It feels like someone will always come when it's dark. At some point, you became the voice. You whispered it to someone smaller. You lit their sky. Maybe they were scared. Maybe you weren't sure. But still, you gave them magic. That's how it travels. Not through sleighs or reindeer or suits, but through stories. Passed hand to hand, heart to heart. And now, it lives in them. It came quietly, not with anger, but with shadow. A question, a smirk, a laugh in class. You didn't want to stop believing, but doubt sat down beside you. Was it real? Had it ever been? And yet, you still left cookies, still listened for something on the roof, because letting go is harder than it looks. You grew up, but you didn't let go. Not really. You just shifted. You played along. You put on the suit. Pretending became its own kind of real. Like singing when no one listens. Like hugging someone who doesn't ask. You gave what you once received. And in that giving, belief returned. Magic isn't held. It's handed. In bedtime stories. In stocking traditions. In badly sung carols. It's in the way you hold a hand, fold a note, pause before turning on the lights. Belief isn't trapped in childhood. It walks beside us, quiet and brave. Every time you help, you keep it breathing. Belief outgrows its costume. It stops needing sleighs and red suits. It becomes something else. It's the extra plate at the table, the hand on a shoulder, the quiet gift no one claims. Sometimes it's not even joyful. It's just soft, and steady, and stubborn, like hope that won't let go. The best gift isn't wrapped. It doesn't crinkle or sparkle. It doesn't need a bow. It's showing up, staying late, listening long. It's letting someone be exactly who they are, and still loving them. That's magic. No sleigh, no snow, just human light in the middle of winter. There's always one. They wear the sweater, hang the lights, bake the cookies. Everyone laughs, but secretly they're grateful. Because belief needs a keeper, someone who still hums carols in October, who saves ribbon, who tears up at commercials. They are not silly. They are sacred. They hold the line between memory and miracle. It's not efficient. It's not logical. But we do it. We find an old sock or a red felt one. We hang it in hope because the ritual matters. The waiting matters. It teaches us to pause, to prepare, to believe that joy can arrive quietly, overnight. It's just a toy, or a fruit, or a folded paper heart. But it carries everything, not because of price, but because of thought, because someone paused and remembered you, because someone believed you were worth the ribbon. It's not the gift, it's the being seen, and we never stop needing that. There's something about a tree, lit, quiet. It's not loud, not demanding. It just stands and waits and welcomes. We gather there with stories, with cookies, with songs. And every year we return to the same circle of light, because belief needs roots, and we grow in that glow. It's morning, still dim, still quiet, and then a gasp, tiny feet on wood, a blanket dragged behind. The tree is full, the room is changed, but the biggest gift is not the toy. It's the look, the breath caught, the sacred silence before the joy. We remember that moment forever, not because of what we got, but how it felt to be loved. Not all places have chimneys, or pine trees, or snow. And still, he comes, through open doors, across dry roofs, beside banana leaves and desert winds. Magic isn't about cold. It's about light in darkness. And wherever someone waits with hope, he finds them. Because we need a reason to pause, to wrap, to hope, to be soft in a hard world. We need stories that outlive logic, gestures that don't ask for proof. Santa is not just real, he is necessary, because every year we are asked, not to believe in him, but to believe in goodness itself. Forget the sleighs, forget the names, forget the jingles. What's left when the tinsel fades? A child's laugh, a warm room, a pause before the first bite. The real magic never needed costumes, just kindness, just light in the cold, and the feeling that even now someone cares. There's a compass inside us, not made of metal, but meaning. It points not to snow or stars, but to moments, giving, listening, choosing kindness even when it's hard. That's the north. That's the glow. That's the way home in December. And every story, every myth, every Santa is just a map back to that. You don't need a sleigh, or reindeer, or red. You need an open door, a quiet moment, a decision, because the story lives now in you. Every hug, every kindness. Every time you choose to soften the world, you carry the flame. That's Santa. That's Christmas. That's enough. Sometimes the music starts before we're ready. It plays while dishes pile, while traffic waits, while loneliness lingers. And still, a bell, a note, a memory wrapped in sound. It doesn't fix us. It just reminds us we're not alone. Even silence has a chorus. We set the table, we count the plates, we feel the absence. But love, it doesn't leave with the body. It stays in the recipes, in the laughter, in the mismatched ornaments they always liked. They're not here, but they are, and Christmas still holds them. This season is not just for sparkle, not just for speed. It's also for pause, for looking out the window and letting the world slow down. In that stillness, we hear more, feel more, heal more. It's not a break, it's a beginning, the quiet where wonder returns. We don't remember every gift, but we remember the feeling, the smell of cinnamon, the sound of laughter, the moment someone handed you the biggest piece of pie. Memory isn't perfect. It's warm and soft and slightly out of focus, but it stays, like snow on old windowsills, and every year we add one more flake. It doesn't rush, it doesn't beg, it doesn't knock, it waits at the door of your heart, not to take, but to give, not to change you, but to remind you of who you already are. The spirit of Christmas doesn't arrive. It's always here. We just have to notice. For just a moment, the world hushes, the news slows, the streets clear, the night deepens, and in that hush, something sacred can be heard. Not a jingle, not a speech, just breath, just light. just the sound of people choosing love over everything else. In the end, it's not about the man in red. It's not even about the night. It's about what we carry forward. The light that doesn't burn out, only waits. The moment we choose kindness over rush, hope over fear, presence over presence. You are the story now. You are the sleigh, the song, the spark. Keep the flame. Tonight, let the world be soft. Let stars press their quiet fingers to your windows. Let snow rest gently on rooftops and regrets. You've done enough. You've been enough. Let wonder wrap you like a woolen blanket. Let silence hum like a lullaby just for you. Sleep. You are held. Not every light needs to be lit. Some glow in the heart, even if today felt heavy. This night has room for your breath. The trees are listening. The stars remember your name. The night believes in you. And that, sometimes, is enough. Let your thoughts drift like paper boats on candlelit streams. Let them float, not rushed, not pushed. Tonight, no answers are needed. Only breath, only dreams. You are not lost. You are becoming. Like stories that begin only after the final word. Let the lights dim without fear. Let the snow fall without answer. Let every worry wrap itself in a soft hush and dissolve into the dark. You are allowed to stop now, to rest, to be, to just exist without proving anything. Let the world fade gently. You are still here, and that is enough. And so, we close the story, but not the wonder. It stays in your breath, in your walk, in your quiet smile tomorrow morning. You don't need to remember every word, only the feeling of being safe, of being seen, of being part of something ancient and warm and kind. Until the next light, walk gently.